Hang on, let me get my stuff together. Just arrived at Michelle Dockery's house and I've got my colour card out. I'm just making sure she's got Farrow on the front door. And yes, it's breakfast room green.
Hello.
How? That's so embarrassing. You weren't meant to catch me.
Are you checking the colour of the door? Hello, come in.
How are you?
Come in, come and have a cup of tea.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Paddy O'Donnell, and this is the Chromologist from Farrow & Ball, the podcast where paint and colour meet life.
I've always had a very strong connection with colour. It's always just been a way of life for me.
I'm a colour expert, and I spend my life helping people transform their dreams about colour into reality.
As a colour, it's this shocking, wild,
it's
bright,
really
vivacious, in-your-face pink.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what the club night was about.
It's through these conversations, and the ones I've had on this podcast, and reading your memories and comments on Instagram, that I'm endlessly captivated by the power of colour to guide our lives.
I love it. It's very peaceful.
It's that really lovely, lovely blue that you get through the backbone and the mackerel.
It's quite like the colour of your eyes, actually.
Is it? Are
Yeah.
you flirting with me? I remember Mary Porter saying in our last series, I've never told my life story through colour, but everyone should do this. And so we're back with a new series in which I ask people to choose 4 pivotal colours that have shaped their own lives.
I think we underestimate how much colour does influence us and how it makes us feel. And it's so easy to say, I just love yellow. Why?
So, without further ado, on with the show. For the first episode in the new series of The Chromologist, I'm thrilled to welcome the one and only Michelle Dockery, an actress who's best known for starring as the dynamic and brutally honest Lady Mary Crawley in the TV series Downton Abbey, for which she's won a number of awards. Michelle has said she's a proud Essex girl at heart, coming from a family of very strong, opinionated, tough women. We'll find that out later. She's also said her kitchen is the most important space in the house. It's pretty beautiful too, because I'm in it. Michelle, it's wonderful to be here. We are in your kitchen today, which is really exciting, and the acoustics are really good because we're sitting on a really beautiful rug. Hello.
Hello.
So we're down here in your beautiful kitchen, come living room, come dining room, and it's a really fantastic space. Are you down here a lot?
Yeah, spend most of our time down here. Yeah, we just love having people over, and as you can see, we've got a lovely dining table down the end, and it's a really lovely space to host, because then you can have dinner and then you can come down here and, have a coffee or a drink afterwards. So,
And I spy a dog bed.
Yeah, that's for Alfie, our 4-year-old lurcher, and that bed is actually huge. Sometimes we look at it and we're like, our dog's bed he's a big dog.
Well, you're obviously madly busy, so how does Alfie fit into all that? Can you take Alfie on set with you sometimes?
Yeah, he's okay on set. He can sit in my trailer and he just go. If I've given him a really good run, he can just snuggle up in my trailer. And actually, on the most recent Downton film, which we just wrapped, it was like a dog creche. There were so many dogs. Our producer has a dog, and some of the ADs had their dogs. So it was great.
Now when I come into people's homes, all I look at is colour. So your dog bed is slightly ver de terre, I think.
It's very chic. My niece and nephews sort of snuggle in with him.
Do they?
They get in his bed because it's massive. Look at it.
It is. It's perfect. And there's a kind of lovely liberty of colour choice here, because you've got blue going on, you've got red going on, you've got dark green going on. Are you doing all this yourself, or do you use an interior designer as well?
No, I feel I have good taste, and I really enjoy it. I do really love doing it. But a house with this much to do, when we renovated it, I really needed to bring someone in. And I worked with a fantastic interior designer called Emma Ainscough, whose work is absolutely beautiful. She is an expert in choosing colour. She also is really, pattern. I always thought, you can't mix pattern and like 2 different patterns, and like the chair you're sitting in is very different from the carpet, but it all sort of works.
We're going to look at the colour of your childhood, your first colour. So if you can share what that is.
So I went for slipper satin.
Okay.
The house we grew up in, my mum's very house proud.
This is in Essex.
This is in Essex, where I grew up. We had a beautiful home, and my mum loved and still loves pinkish cream.
Okay.
All the walls were that lovely creamy colour. You know, she would always have like beautiful cushions that had that lovely, those lovely tones. And she loved greens as well. We had a lovely green sofa growing up, a very big green, like a suite. And my dad always had his chair.
It was Dad's chair. Like Jim in the royal family.
Yeah.
It's Dad's chair.
Yeah, Dad's chair. So my mum would have lovely colours like greens and pinks. And I remember always seeing those big tables when I was a kid and them putting the wallpaper up themselves. And, you know, she'd have like a change every few years, but it was often those lovely sort of pinkish cream, like this slipper satin. And also I chose that because it reminds me of so much of my childhood because I danced. I went to ballet school.
Okay.
And at this wonderful stage school in Essex where I grew up called the Finch Stage School. And that colour really reminds me of ballet, of course, ballet shoes, which is why it's called that. And sewing on your ribbons to your ballet shoes or getting new ballet shoes each year. And, you know, it sort of really reminds me of that time. And that kind of pinky tone as a little girl, you know, it just always sort of makes me think of that time when I loved those pinkish kind of ballet slippers or like the little ballet leotards we wore. And
I mean, where we are now, there is a kind of very delicate pinkish note to these walls. I know this isn't slipper satin because we talked about the colours earlier, but it's kind of that slightly pinkish white note, isn't it?
Exactly. I've carried on that tradition.
Yeah. Your folks come here a lot.
They do,
They?
yeah.
You're still really close family and all hang out together.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you a riot when you're together?
We are. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun and laugh. We laugh a lot.
Because have you got Irish roots as well?
Yeah, my dad's Irish. We can get into really big chats and especially, you know, around the dinner table or sometimes, like at Christmas times, we sort of communicate through the telly. Okay. You know, we love sitting down and watching a film which is
a real trad thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
Coming back to your slipper satin, this lovely, as you say, kind of slightly soft pinkish white, greyish almost, with a tiny bit of yellow through it. You talked about your mum's house and it kind of represents the living room and growing up with splashes of green through the place. Any other kind of reference for that sort of gentle, sort of soft pink white?
I think the colour, because it reminds me so much of that time in my childhood, it's comforting. I feel like it's and calming. It's lovely, calming colour and bright. I feel like it was, you know, coming home from dancing or school at the end of the day. Our house was always very bright.
Right, okay.
It was lovely, bright, and it was a small house. You know, we grew up in a pretty small house. You know, we were forever fighting over the bathroom. My poor dad, he grew up with three girls, and I remember those summers coming home, and our house was always very warm in the winter and very cool in the summer. Maybe it was also something to do with where the sun set. Right, yeah. Where the sun came up and set. And so I remember always coming home to a really, like after, you know, dancing for a few hours and being really hot and bothered and coming home to a really cool house. And I think that was the colour. But
you couldn't get into the bathroom because your sisters were there doing lippy and eyeliner and stuff like that.
Exactly. This is the office.
Nobody's in there, so nobody's working very hard.
Nobody's working very hard, yeah. Well, it's a bit echoey because we've just painted it and there's not much furniture in it.
Actually, it's kind of an antidote, isn't it, to the rest of the house? I mean, only you've got white walls, but that feels very calm, very soft in there.
Yeah.
And another whopping dog bed.
I know. Look, he's got two.
They're not dog
he's
beds.
The most
they're his and hers, aren't they?
He's the most spoilt dog. It's because he moves around a lot. He's always wanting to sit near us, so we had to sort of have another. But the thing is, he always ends up on the sofas and the chairs, so I don't know why we've got these dog beds. I'm sentimental. I don't want to get rid of them because he's had them since he was tiny.
Yeah, no, I'm like that. We've got really manky sheepskins for our dogs, and I don't get rid of them. They're really horrible and matted. I like a bit of drool in my bed. Yeah. So we're going to be moving on now to your second colour, which is the colour of your youth. So if you can share what that is.
Yeah. So I've gone for green, studio green.
Which is our blackest green. Yeah. It's really elegant. I love it. It's
beautiful. Yeah. And we've used it a lot in the house. But studio green, I chose studio green because my sort of teenage years, it makes me think of my indie years. 13 to 16, I went through a real grunge phase.
Did you?
Yeah, really grungy. And my mum actually she's a brilliant dressmaker. And she didn't do that for a living, but she just loved making clothes. And she used to make me these. There was a real fashion for like long skirts and Dr. Martens.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I remember I had this dark green, she found this really cool dark green fabric with like a really cool pattern. And she would make them for me when I went through my grunge years, the sort of like Alanis Morissette years, you know? And I had like the long hippie hair and...
It's kind of a strong women moment too, though, wasn't it? It wasn't kind of like external to society. It was kind of women finding their voice moment, wasn't it? People
Absolutely.
like Alanis Morissette and stuff like that.
And I loved her. I loved her music at that time, you know, when that album just blew up. And then other clothes that were just, I remember I had this dark green top, which was really fashionable in the 90s. It was a sort of like cotton, then you had a sort of mesh over the top.
Okay.
It was very kind of Spice Girls era as well,
Yeah.
where you sort of had that. Yeah, you know, Paddy, you used to wear them.
Yeah, I used to wear them all the time in my 30s.
Yeah. And it sort of had this, the only way I can describe it is like a tattoo across the top, like a sort of shape of a tattoo.
Yeah.
So it was my slightly grungy goth years.
Okay.
And then I cut my hair off really short and I went sort of really a little bit punky, and cutting my hair short I think it definitely upset my nan, my granny. She
really?
Yeah, she really didn't like my hair short. And you know, I remember she always used to say, you know, grow it back, I wish you'd grow it back. So she'd be very pleased now because look, my hair is very long.
Yeah, you have very lovely, lush tresses, don't you?
And also that colour for me is also sort of teenage angst.
Yeah.
That dark green. And actually when I see it now, and we have it a lot in the house, and you can see my kitchen it's a very sort of dark green. It doesn't make me think of that time. It's actually a really calm, I think it's a really lovely calm colour. But then it felt like it was the sort of, you know, it makes me think of those years of like teenage angst and, you know, a bit moody. And
So when you were doing your kind of dark green, slightly grungy emo, Alanis flag waving moment, was that to kind of get a response from anybody? Or
no, it was more my way of finding myself, I think, and expressing myself. I remember when I was old enough to go into London on my own, I would get the train from Romford into Liverpool Street and then I'd go to Camden.
The legendary Camden Market.
Yeah, and I'd go to Camden sometimes with a friend, or I'd just go on my own with my Walkman and my headphones listening to Nirvana or Alanis Morissette, and in my green skirt and my DMs. I'd sometimes get those henna tattoos.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember?
Which
And
are
there was
really
the
beautiful.
markets.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd get them on my hands, and I'd go home and my mum would be like, that's interesting. Thank God it's not a real one, you know. But I loved them. I would have these like little henna tattoos on my hands, and it was a real time of sort of my first like taste of freedom.
Were you kind of, obviously because we all know you as an actor, were you doing acting?
The stage school I was there right up until I was, 17. And then when I got to senior school, they had a great drama department. And I had a wonderful teacher called Jude Burt, who I'm still friends with now. And she really encouraged me with the acting and encouraged me to audition for the National Youth Theatre, which I then did when I was sort of 16, 17. And then eventually drama school. So, and I think really maybe that time as well of wearing certain clothes and being a sort of style, it was like putting on maybe a little bit of kind of putting on a character, or, I think everyone goes through that, don't they, of expressing themselves at that age. It's like finding who you are. But maybe there was also a little bit of wanting to look like Alanis Morissette, or I'd see a movie and, like those Baz Luhrmann, like Romeo and Juliet, and Juliet was always in sort of long dresses and with the long hair, and I sort of wanted to kind of be her. Right. So there was a bit of that going on at that time.
You've got my favourite runner on the stairs, that lovely Sinclair Till sort of, it's jute, isn't it? But it's really thick.
It's the peacock one, so it sort of looks like feathers.
And it's got every colour. There's lovely orange, isn't there? There's kind of a neutral jute colour. You've got emerald green and a bit of lilac. You walk on that in bare feet because it's not the softest thing in the world, is it?
But it's so hard. It's brilliant for a staircase because it's so hard wearing,
And great for getting the dry skin off your heel.
It's a free pedicure.
So moving on, we're going to move to your defining decade now.
So for that decade, from sort of early 20s through to early 30s, I wanted to find a colour that was really vibrant and, had a big impact. So I went for red. I just thought I've got to go for red because that period was just hectic and fun, and I'd just started working. I'd just become an actor, and I was doing theatre, and then, you know, Downton then came along when I was 27. And
It's Downton 27 for you?
yeah, I was
Wow.
27, yeah.
Okay.
And so I sort of wanted to kind of do that period between leaving drama school and then those 14 years, but particularly those Downton years, the series, more than the films, which was 10 years,
Yeah.
pretty much. It was sort of 8 to 10 years. And it was just fast pace and red carpets and, you know, so I thought I have to choose red. So I went for Bamboozle.
Yeah, so Bamboozle's one about sort of more recent colours. And I never know quite how to describe it, because obviously Bamboozle itself is kind of, you know, the bamboo, you know, to bamboozle somebody. But the actual colour is really like a harissa red, a rose harissa red. I suppose that's kind of the easiest way. It's really almost kind of leaning towards orange, but not orange. So it's not a true red. There's a lovely vibrancy to it, isn't there? But yes, so going back to the red carpet, the kind of glamour, the frenetic kind of ness of that nature. So
it's just the sort of energy of that colour. And I think I wore a lot of red at that time.
Did you?
So on Downton as well, Lady Mary was wearing red a lot. One of the first episodes, actually, I'm in a red evening gown, and then lots of burgundy and lots of, it was always a colour that suited the character and suited me, I think. So the costume designers were always putting me in red. And then as the show, you know, became so successful in America, and of course that opened up that whole mad time of like flying to LA and doing all these press junkets in New York and LA.
was that your first experience of the craziness of what it's like stateside?
Absolutely. And I remember the first time the show was nominated for Emmys, I didn't know what they were. I was like, what's an Emmy? No idea. It was so new to me. And the first dress I wore at the Emmys was burgundy, it was red. And then there was another time where I wore this beautiful custom Prada gown, and the bottom half was burgundy and the top half was bright red. That colour really stands out for me.
Those dresses?
No.
Oh, you're not? Did
No,
they rip them off your back?
Yeah. They're made and then they're put into archive, or sometimes you can auction. Sometimes they're auctioned.
Okay.
That one actually was auctioned for a charity. But the top half was that bamboozle colour, bright red.
Really spicy sort of red.
Yeah. So and it was very busy, frenetic time, you know, travelling and always on a plane or filming, and so that I went for that colour because it does for me. That's what that time was like.
It's
it was
energy,
very
excitement,
bright, a lot of energy. Yeah, I do love red as well. I wear red. I like wearing red, and I love red. You can see lots of pops of red in the house.
There are lots of accents red, aren't there, on your runner and on the beautiful rug we're on.
Yeah.
And you got a red cushion behind you.
Yeah, my red cushions.
And when we came in, I was being really nosy and I looked in your boot room.
Yeah.
And you got a red window frame with black and white tiled floor and beautiful, I think, slow blue units in the boot room.
Yeah.
But this lovely framing of the glass.
I love painting window frames, having just a little pop of colour off the window frames. And I wanted to do it in that room. And then the front door, one half of it, as you saw, is breakfast room green.
Yeah.
And then the other side is red. And I wanted the two to sort of face each other. So
You're a genius.
I'm not
Don't
really.
say too much because I won't have a job.
I do, as you can tell, I love it. And I think if I wasn't an actress, I'd probably
Have a little foray into interiors.
Yeah, I love it.
That's fantastic. So forget Michelle Dockery for a minute. Let's talk about Lady Mary Crawley. How do you think she would respond to the colour bamboozle?
Well, here's a spoiler. In the next film, I wore this beautiful bright red dress, and it has that kind of orangey red tone to it. So yes, she does.
So she embraces.
She embraces it.
Excellent.
And in the story there is a sort of it's a bit of a new chapter, and I've never worn that colour before in the show. I mean, as I said, I've worn lots of different reds, but never a bright, quite modern red for the time,
really
for 1930. And it's my favourite dress in the film.
Oh, is it?
And it is pretty much bamboozle.
What room's this?
Well, it's the
Is this your
dressing
dressing
room. Yeah. It's
I
my
love that. And this is in Chiro Blue in the gloss.
Yeah.
It's really glamorous, isn't it? And you've got a beautiful lacquer. Is that Trove Studio Dugan?
It is. Yeah.
Dressing
and it's,
table,
again,
yeah.
it's that pop of red I love it against the blue.
It's
gorgeous.
glorious with the blue, isn't it? And the
Yeah.
lovely block print on the blinds with the red again, picking up the red.
Well, and I wanted to do gloss because it reflects the light, because it is a darker colour.
Yeah.
But it's really cosy and looks great with all my washing hanging out, doesn't
I love
it?
Yeah, it looks beautiful. It's a really lovely room. So we're going to be talking about your colour of now, and
Yes.
I'd love to know where this is going to go, because obviously I know you're doing a bit of music too.
Oh, yes.
So does that come into where you are now? or-
Yes, I guess that does. The last few years I've really loved blue. So for this last one, I've gone for Inchira blue. I'm sort of really
Okay.
drawn to that colour in what I wear and paint colour. For our house renovation we did, I've used a lot of blue in the house, and particularly that colour. It's gorgeous. I think it's a really calming blue.
Yeah, I suppose for anybody who doesn't know what Inchira blue is, and how dare you, if you're listening to this podcast, you should know every colour. But it's dark, isn't it? I mean, I always kind of
yeah.
sort of call it slightly gunmetal with some warmth.
Yep.
It's kind of slightly steely blue, a little bit of green in it. But it's
Yeah.
really forgiving, isn't it? For a dark colour, it's not too much. It's not overpowering. There's a kind of
Yeah.
warmth to it. It's really cosy.
And I think actually maybe it reminds me of some of those amazing places that we filmed in, not just on Downton, but in other work that I've done that the setting has been in those beautiful old estates. That's
That
something
all
about
have
that.
their estate colour and everything like that.
Yeah, and also there's certain restaurants and places that I've been in that have that colour blue. I just feel like it's a sort of colour of this time, or the last few years for me. And I guess coming out of bamboos, out of that red time into blue, it's like a slightly calmer colour. For me, I'm always drawn to it for some reason.
Well, there's a colour psychology thing that greens are very restful and blues are quite thoughtful as well.
Ah,
so
yeah.
Maybe
I'm in
that's
my
it.
thoughtful time.
You've grown up. You got married. You're all settled. You're growing up. You got a dog.
Got a dog. It's a sort of calmer time.
Yeah.
I do definitely take a little bit of more time out now.
Where does the music fit in? So obviously that is removed from acting. It's still performing.
Yeah.
But where's that fitting in?
So Michael Fox, who plays Andy in Downton, he's a great friend and we've worked together for a really long time. We started bringing our guitars to set and started playing together and writing songs together, and just for fun really. And then, we thought, let's just go for it and start actually doing it. And we performed at the Kiln Theatre in Kilburn a few years ago, and somebody was in the crowd who became our manager. And then we signed up and started doing it, and started recording. And we've got 2 EPs out now, and I've loved it. And it's such a different way of performing and way of working. You're speaking somebody else's words when you're acting, and with music, it was something that was really new and quite daunting at times. Writing. Where do you start? What do you write about? And we have this way of working where Michael will start a really beautiful riff. He'll start something and we'll have a kind of idea of a line or a feeling or a saying, and then you sort of mumble your way through it, and eventually you kind of find
Form
the
it.
story. Yeah, and actually often a lot of our songs sort of have become a story, like a story about a couple or about a friendship. And I think maybe that's where our acting, the influence of us being actors comes into our songwriting, because...
I'm not saying this because I'm here, but I was listening to some of the tracks on YouTube.
Did you?
And
Yeah.
you have both of you have really beautiful voices, and you do pair beautifully together.
Oh, thank you. Well,
Yeah.
people have said we're almost like brother and sister, how siblings sing.
It's really lovely.
And I have it with my sister, actually, where you can harmonise really well together. But Michael and I have always sort of had that. We harmonise very well together.
I know you said you're going through a blue phase at the moment, because to me, Inchira blue kind of feels like, I wonder if it's a bit of your Irish roots there.
Oh, yeah.
'Cause to me, it feels a bit sort of outdoorsy, like water on stone walls with lichen and everything. It's kind of, I wonder if it's taking you back to
That
your
sounds
Irish
so lovely.
roots.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, I think it's a sort of ground. Maybe I feel more grounded.
Okay.
I feel like it's a different time. And like I was saying, it's, my 20s and 30s were very heightened and, always travelling and moving around. And also this house I've moved around a lot, and here feels like we're going to be here for a long
This feels a
time.
bit like a forever house. Okay.
Yeah, and I think that maybe that colour is a sort of more grounding. It feels quite.
It's roots.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it feels quite rooted. I've been, so lucky, and I've stayed in the most beautiful places and all over the world, and have travelled so much, and I've stayed in gorgeous hotels, and
It's not quite
for
the
me,
same though, is it?
It's never quite.
As
Yeah,
your own bed and stuff like
yeah,
that.
and I sort of always, I at some point was like, I really want a home. I want to put all my things and all my memorabilia and all the silly things that I've collected along the way in one place. And it really feels like that's this time, and that colour just, as you can see, it sort of pops up all over the house. It's like a really
And you've got
calming
versions
colour.
of it, because you've got bits of blue, bits of green,
Yeah.
in that kind of dark spectrum.
Yeah,
Which is kind of filtering colours from the Enchira out anyway.
yeah. We've got some fitted wardrobes upstairs, and it looks beautiful in the gloss.
Oh, it's lovely because you get much more the nuance of the undertones, don't you?
Yeah,
going
and the
through?
reflections.
So this is where we move on to me giving you a colour.
Okay.
And actually, you've used quite strong colours, apart from your childhood. You've used quite strong, because your life is probably quite frenetic, it's quite full on, and you need those moments quite. So we have a colour called Old White, which is really beautiful, elegant, slightly dirty, but, really calming, really restful white. And I always rename these colours, and I'm calling it That's a Wrap White. She's rolling her eyes at me.
No, I love it.
So I know, a really cheesy name, but I kind of thought, at the end of the day, and actually it feels really fitting to your story about blue, is when you walk off set, you go back into your world where you control it. It's a bit quieter, it's a bit calmer, and this is just about you finding that breathing space after kind of doing your press junkets and massive crazy filming schedule and stuff. So it's
love it.
It's that calm, my time, my personal space,
Yeah.
my family space, time for you to just breathe and stop.
I love it.
Here's your tin of That's a Wrap White.
Oh my God, got to paint something in this colour now. That's
Do you know
so
what?
special.
It's really good. Actually, it's really good full circle, because it's the best trim colour, woodwork skirting,
Is it?
and ceiling colour to go with Enchira Blue.
Okay,
They work a
perfect.
treat together.
Right, that's it. I'm using my colour. And that's a wrap.
Yeah, and that's a wrap. Thank you very much, Michelle. It's been a hoot, so thank you so much.
Such a pleasure. This has been a treat. Thank you.
Thank you. So if you can't wait 12 months for the third instalment of Downton Abbey, the movie, Michelle will be appearing in October in the new brilliant Robert Zemeckis film Here. I'm saying brilliant, I haven't seen it yet. You can also follow us at Farrow. Come and find me. I'd love to know if you've enjoyed this conversation. And if you have, then please do tell your friends. My guest next week is the gardener and landscape designer Sean Anthony Pritchard. The Chromologist is a Farrow Feast Collective production. The producer is Sarah Cudden. Until the next one, goodbye and big hugs.